Has the Iran war taken a new turn since Tuesday evening? The US and Saudi Arabia have both confirmed that their fighter jets attacked an Iranian-backed militia in Iraq. Is this the moment that officially marks the end of Gulf restraint and the start of Arab nations' fight back against Iran? We'll discuss that in a bit, but first, here's what happened. US Central Command and Saudi Arabia's defense ministry confirmed strikes across eastern Iraq. These hit the Iran-backed Popular Mobilization Forces in Nineveh province and in their command headquarters in Basra. Now, Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Defense said the strikes were a response to attacks on its oil facilities. This is part of what was posted on X, and I quote, "The Saudi armed forces, in coordination with the US Central Command today, Wednesday, conducted precise and targeted strikes against objectives belonging to those militias located on the territory of the Republic of Iraq and linked to the attacks on petroleum facilities in the kingdom," unquote. Now, this is what part of US Central Command said, and I quote, "US Central Command and the Saudi Arabian armed forces conducted precision strikes in Iraq July 28 against Iran-aligned terrorists that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, directed to attack US forces and Saudi energy infrastructure. US and Saudi fighter aircraft struck multiple terrorist logistics and weapon sites across eastern Iraq in a strong response to over 30 IRGC-directed aerial drone attacks in the last 72 hours, unquote. Let's get more on this. Shahin Modarres is a Middle East analyst and leads the Iran team at the International Team for the Study of Security in Verona, Italy. Shahin, thanks for making the time. Good to have you here. Lots to discuss. But first, let's get your reaction to the joint US-Saudi strikes, because there has been reporting earlier of UAE, Kuwaiti, and Bahraini strikes against Iran. But is this the first official confirmation from a Gulf nation that it targeted Iranian interests?
Hello, Biresh, and thank you for having me. Well, what's going on is quite interesting because you can see that one of the main reasons why the Trump administration withheld for some time, for a few days, for a couple of days, the attacks against the Islamic Republic was because of the fact that they were trying to politically come up with a new coalition. Now, considering that the Abraham Accords are still not big enough to include Saudi Arabia, it was quite hard for the US to create an Arabic-Israeli American coalition against the Islamic Republic, but having the Arab countries of the Middle East and the countries of the Persian Gulf region on board would have been something that they would have needed in order to regionally contain the Islamic Republic in a way that they can no longer maneuver like before. What we witnessed was a part of this, and it is an entrance to a new paradigm where countries of the Persian Gulf region, as well as Arab countries of the Middle East, are eventually striking back in a defensive mean to make sure that they are no longer hit by the Islamic Republic.
So is this something that we can extend to the entire Gulf region? Are all Gulf countries on board with this arrangement to try and target Iran and Iranian interests?
Well, to be honest, we can see that a collective will like that and a collective decision-making of such kind can be quite probable, considering that in the recent months, the Islamic Republic even invaded and attacked some of the countries in the Persian Gulf region, which were quite loyal to the Islamic Republic, which tried to intervene and moderate diplomatically for the Islamic Republic. Countries such as Qatar, such as Oman, these are countries who have been close and somehow a form of diplomatic allies of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and yet they were hit. And here's the problem with hitting these countries. It is not only about the death toll that you create or the economic or financial harm that you do to these countries. What happens is that you break the form of public image that they have tried tried to develop and create for decades, that they are a safe place for investment and for growth. That is the paradigm that is being hit by the Islamic Republic, and that is the reason why we can observe such coalitions coming further away.
So does this widen the Iran war then, in which countries in the Gulf are going to be more involved in active combat operations against Iran? Is this a widening of the war then?
It could be deepening of the war, not necessarily widening of the war, because a few years ago, to be honest with you, it was quite improbable to even imagine that there will be members of the Israeli Defense Forces on the soil of the United Arab Emirates being behind the aerial defense systems, being the operators of these systems. And that happened. And when we look at these new coalitions being formed, we can see that it can deepen like this, not necessarily being widened.
Okay, so when you're talking about deepening, does this also include Israel? I mean, we were talking up until this point just about the Arab nations in the Gulf and the United States. Are we also looking at Israel joining this coalition as well in some sort of form?
Definitely, Israel will be a present company side of this coalition, even if it is invisible in certain cases, but in collaboration with countries that are members of the Abraham Accords, such as the United Arab Emirates. We can see that this collaboration is quite evident and can develop daily.
What you're talking about basically is a complete realignment of the Middle East then, aren't you?
Well, this is what after the terrorist attack of October 7th happened, a paradigm shift in the Middle East, and I believe that the reign of terror that the Islamic Republic created and developed for 47 years within the region is now being changed. We should also consider something. It is not just the proxy groups that the Islamic Republic is losing in the Middle East region. We should also consider the social changes of people, of nations of these countries rejecting completely the ideology and the activities of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
I want to talk about the proxy groups since you did bring it up, and in particular in relation to these particular strikes. We're talking about the joint US and Saudi strikes. These were strikes against the so-called Popular Mobilization Front in Iraq. And I want to talk a bit more about this group because they are called the PMF for short. They're an umbrella organization of armed groups in Iraq. And for the benefit of our viewers, they were formed in 2014 to fight the so-called Islamic State and are officially part of Iraq's security forces. But several powerful factions remain closely aligned with Iran. And that has made the PMF a major source of tension between Baghdad, Tehran, and Washington. But it's not clear how large the force is. But Iraq lists just under 240,000 positions on its payroll. It's thought to be larger than the Iraqi army. Shahin, let's spend a bit of time on let me just ask my question, because let's spend a bit of time on this. It's a security force that could potentially be larger than the Iraqi army. It is paid for by Iraq, but it is aligned to Iran. Explain to us how something like that exists.
We're talking about a very interesting case. The first thing that we should consider is that we're talking about a bunch of mercenaries. Now, the fact that they are big in numbers and the fact that they are officialized, and I will explain this, doesn't change the fact that we're still dealing with mercenaries. And here's what's happening. The Islamic Republic, since its foundation, have been trying to come up with a sort of underground governance. Look at the ballistic missile cities that they have created in Iran, all underground. Look at the nuclear program. Look at where the supreme leader is and where the former supreme leader was, underground, up until he was killed in an attack the first day he came out of the tunnel. So the Islamic Republic lives on the politics of tunnels. But in the Iraqi case, the fact that they have surfaced and they have came to the free air shows the fact that they have been officialized in Iraq, and that is a bad sign for the free world. That is a bad sign for the region, because it means that the Islamic Republic has somehow won, unfortunately, until this moment, the internal politics of Iraq, and has made Iraq its own backyard. This is the main situation that is going on in Iraq, yet Iraqi people are quite against these activities when we look at the social streams that exist in the country today.
I did want to ask you about the role of the Iraqi government here, because according to reports, Iraqi Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi is scheduled to travel to Saudi Arabia on Thursday, but he was also in Tehran meeting Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian just a few days back. So what is the position here of Iraq? What is Iraq trying to do?
But it's quite important to first of all remember that the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has currently no power. The real power in the country relies within the hands of the IRGC inside Iran. And the reason that they are dealing with Iraq like this has different roots. One of the main reasons why the Islamic Republic is trying to keep its affluence in Iraq is because of the mercenaries, of the proxy groups that they have in Iraq, such as Hashd al-Sha'bi, Alam al-Askari, and many others that you even mentioned. And these groups are high in numbers, but there is something very interesting about them. After the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, the Islamic Republic's head of the Quds Force of the IRGC, no one has been able to unify these militias and these mercenaries the way he used to do, because he used to create some sort of political convergence and unity amongst these people. After he was killed, the person who was trying to fulfill this role up onto a certain level was Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of the terrorist organization Hezbollah. And after he was eliminated, this became a real problem for the Islamic Republic.
Okay, so where does that leave the Iranian response? So going back to what you were saying a while back, some sort of a coalition building between the United States, the Arab nations in the Gulf, and potentially Israel as well in targeting Iran. Iran with these mercenaries, as you are calling them, and these militias, which are not united, these proxy groups that are not united, is it going to become harder in this deepening of the conflict, as you also describe it, for Iran to attack its neighbors or to stand up to the United States?
Well, it could complicate the response, particularly considering that the Islamic Republic is trying to use whatever is left of its proxy groups as a leverage. So we can even witness them sacrificing their militias in Yemen or in Lebanon or in Iraq, actually being sacrificed for an eventual even memorandum of understanding with the United States. Because from the Iranian point of view, what's happening right now is that the IRGC is trying to organize and orchestrate a form of coup d'etat that can eventually help to guarantee the survival of regime. And that is against the ideology, the doomsday ideology that is, I believe, the Mojtaba Khamenei might have in this clear instance. That is the main reason why the war with the Islamic Republic might be aggravated for some time, but eventually in the mid run and in the long run, it would end by the demise of the regime.
At the moment, does that mean that therefore, if we are entering this new paradigm in the war, this deepening of the conflict as you described it, the United States and its, should we call them Arab allies in the Gulf and potentially Israel, then have the upper hand and they can bring Iran to meet US demands purely on the strength of military force?
They already have brought the Islamic Republic to accept the terms of surrender, not negotiation by the United States. If we look at the current condition, we can see that the US, on one side, they have the diplomatic negotiations going on saying that we are willing to negotiate with you. But the truth is, the United States accepts nothing rather than a full surrender of the Islamic Republic. On the other hand, they keep on attacking different sites in Iran, in different zones of Iran, trying to destroy whatever is left of the Islamic Republic's military capabilities and ballistic missile production, and even proxy groups, which tries to somehow internally disciplines them into some sort of demise. That is the reason why the Islamic Republic has two options, and both of those options are deadly for them, because either they do not accept this surrender and this war goes on, or if they accept it, they will be delegitimized in the eyes of the minority, the armed minority that still keeps the regime.
But at the moment, it doesn't look like Iran is giving up, is it? I mean, the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked. You have the proxies, the Houthis that are effectively, I don't know, can we call it, imposed a blockade on the Bab el-Mandab Strait. So it would appear that the Iranians still have cards to play, and they haven't really given in.
They do have cards to play, and the fact that they are trying to create more leverages by somehow trying to extend the borders of this war into other countries, into other areas, shows the fact that how badly and how crucial it is for them, the need of having more leverages. But the fact is, the Strait of Hormuz card was a big card. It was a big bluff. It was the Islamic Republic's last resort, and they played it way too soon. And now that it has been played and the counter strategy has been planted by the United States as well, it is the Islamic Republic that is being frustrated on a daily basis. So yes, they can still stand, but we should see if they can still stand in a 6-month period.
But isn't it about who can take more pain? Because the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is pushing up prices around the world. It is also affecting the Gulf economies. If this crisis deepens, as you say it is, can Gulf economies take it? Can the Iranian economy take it? And how long can the US carry on with an unpopular war back home?
This is a very interesting question, because every time the international community faced a crisis regarding fuel, regarding oil, regarding gas, what they happened was they adopted themselves into this fact. So they changed resources, they changed means, they created super tankers. Look at each war that happened that affected this field and how it adopted itself. Now, what is happening is that indeed many countries are actually considering alternative routes that can help to avoid the affluence of the Islamic Republic. It is not something that can happen overnight. It is definitely something that the market is adapting itself to it. But what we can say is that if the Islamic Republic stays, this situation can be repeated in a certain amount of time, in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So it is not quite sustainable for the international community to allow the repetition of this.
How soon would the Iranian regime have to be made to completely surrender for this crisis to be over? I mean, the time appears to be on the Iranian side, does it not? I mean, they keep firing missile barrages and drone barrages at their neighbors, keeping the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed, their allies closing up the Bab el-Mandab Strait, and all these alternative routes are going to take a long time to build and become effective. The Iranians would appear to have time on their hands then, do they not?
That's a very interesting matter, and it depends on which angle you look at this case, this phenomenon, because currently, yes, the Islamic Republic is trying to sell the narrative, the formation that we have infinite time, we can stay here, we can resist as much as we want, we will attack the neighboring countries. But when you look at the nature of these attacks that they have been doing against the countries of the Persian Gulf region, against the countries of the Middle East, look at the way they have been treating the Iraqi Kurdistan, the probable use of white phosphorus in this region, the continuous bombing of the Kurdish parties' sites within this region. Look at them. And when you consider all of this, you see a regime that is frightened to its bone, and that is the reason why they're acting like this, because their days are being numbered when they cannot, this is not some sort of motto, when they cannot sell oil, their days are being numbered, because that is the fuel that keeps the Islamic Republic going. And yes, the Strait of Hormuz is closed, but neither the Islamic Republic can sell any oil to its favorite country, China, from that route.
Okay, we'll leave it there for the moment. We've had a few conversations over the past few months. I think this is by far the most interesting conversation you and I have had, Shahin. Thanks so much for making the time.
Thank you.
So what do you think? Do Saudi Arabia's strikes on Iran's proxies in Iraq mark a turning point in the war where Gulf nations start to fight back against Iran's attacks? Let us know in the comments. For the moment, it's goodbye from me here in Berlin.